time when nobody seems to care. It's like we've lost our minds.
Numbers 14, beginning at verse 26. And it reads, And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, How long shall I bear with this evil congregation, which murmur against me? I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel, which they murmur against me. Say unto them, As truly as I live, said the Lord, as ye have spoken in mine ears, so will I do to you. Your carcasses shall fall in this wilderness, and all that were numbered of you, according to your whole number, from 20 years old and upward, which have murmured against me. Doubtless ye shall not come into the land concerning which I swear to make you dwell therein, save Caleb the son of Jephunneh, and Joshua the son of Nun. But your little ones, which ye said should be prey, them will I bring in, and they shall know the land which ye have despised. But as for you, your carcasses, they shall fall in this wilderness. Verse 33, and your children shall wander in the wilderness 40 years, and bear your whoredoms until your carcasses be wasted in the wilderness. And in verse 34, after the number of days in which ye search the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall ye bear your iniquities, even 40 years, and ye shall know my breach of promise. And our subject for today is going in circles. Going in circles, the path of disobedience. Going in circles, the path of disobedience. So now today we are discussing wandering. And wandering is simply a state of confusion. And going in circles is associated with confusion and also stagnation. So if you can imagine moving in a circular path, it basically means movement without progress. Movement without progress. Yes, you're moving. You're not staying in the same place, but you're not going anywhere. Okay. So now let me explain what has happened with the children of Israel until this point. Okay, so we know that back in Genesis, God established a covenant with Abraham and his seed. Okay? And Abraham was the first Hebrew. Therefore, his descendants were Hebrews, right? And what were they promised? They were promised land. God was taking them to the promised land. And God told them, but now first, before they get to the land, he said that they will be strangers in a land that was not theirs, right? And that they would serve those people. Okay, and we know that the land that they were strangers in and served the people was the land of what? Egypt. Okay, they were strangers in the land of Egypt, and they served the Egyptians. Okay, now while they were in Egypt, basically what happened, Joseph, we know the story of Joseph. Joseph had the favor of God, all right? But when Joseph died, there was a Pharaoh that rose to power in Egypt, and he did not know Joseph. So therefore, the people, the Egyptians, began to complain about the children of Israel, and the children of Israel is the Hebrews. I don't want to lose anybody. So they began to complain about the size, the quantity of the children of Israel, and it's saying that they was fearing that they may rise to power, and revolt against the Egyptians. So basically the Pharaoh began to deal harshly with the children of Israel. So they began to complain, and God heard their complaints. Remember the promise that he had originally given to Abraham and renewed with Isaac and Jacob, and he sent Moses to deliver his people, right? Now, here's one of the first things that God told Moses when you go talk to Pharaoh. He said, let Pharaoh know that Israel, children of Israel, Israel is my firstborn, right? And you need to let them go so that they can serve me. And if you don't let them go so that they can serve me, then I'm going to kill your firstborn. Okay? Now, God also told Moses that what? Pharaoh is not going to release them. I've hardened his heart. He's not going to listen to what you say. Right? So, basically what God did in the process was he sent 10 plagues to Pharaoh. Okay, and those 10 plagues was the blood of the water, the frogs, gnats, flies, the death of the animals, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, and the last thing that he did was the death of the firstborn, which is what God told what God told Moses that to tell Pharaoh he would do. Okay, that last plague was the death of the firstborn, which is connected to the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So that death of the firstborn, the Passover, and the Feast of Unleavened Bread were all connected to one another. So let me see what I want to say with this. So basically with the Passover, God told them that, okay, I'm bringing you out of Egypt. And what the Passover was, he said, this is the beginning of months for you. This is the first month for you. Okay? He told them to kill a lamb on the 10th day, to get a lamb on goat on the 10th day of the month, of that first month, and keep it until the 14th day, and the whole congregation in the evening would kill the lamb, and this would be the Passover. Okay, so what you would do is, how it became the Passover is, you would take the blood from the lamb, and you put on the doorposts of the houses where they stayed, and the angel of death, when he passed over, when he noticed the blood, he would save them from that plague of the death of the firstborn. Okay. Now also in that time they was to eat unleavened bread because leaven represents sin. So they was to eat unleavened bread. So they ate unleavened bread. They killed the lamb and they used the blood, and the blood is what saved them. Okay. All right. So let's see where. So basically. Now, Israel was in Egypt 400 years, 430 years is how long Israel was in Egypt. Now, when the Passover happened, where were they en route to? They was leaving Egypt, but where were they en route to? They was en route to the Promised Land. Okay, and now we pick up where we are today. Moses and the children of Israel are wandering in the wilderness. Now, a question I want to ask is, to put on your mind, why was Israel wandering? Why was Israel wandering? Okay, we're going to move because we got a lot to cover. So we're going to move right into our first point. Why was Israel wandering? They was going in circles, one, because of their inability to disengage from their past. 14:1 says, and all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried, and the people wept that night. So they were crying. Talking about Israel. Israel was crying, right? And all the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron. And the whole congregation said unto them, why would that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would God had died in this wilderness? So what they're saying is, okay, why would God bring us out here in this wilderness to die? We could have died in Egypt. That's what they were basically saying, right? Verse 3 says, and therefore hath the Lord brought us into this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and our children should be a prey? Were it not better for us to return into Egypt? And they said one to another, let's make a captain and let us return to Egypt. So they was willing to return to Egypt. Now understand, they was in Egypt. The Pharaoh was dealing harsh with them. They were being abused. And they were saying that they was willing to return to Egypt. So, like I said, basically what they didn't understand the assurance of God. Mm-hmm. They didn't understand the assurance of God. So they were so stuck in the past that they couldn't go forward. Now the second reason why Israel was going in circles while they was wandering was because they had no faith in God. They had no faith in God. And we all know that faith is very important, right? Right. Faith is very important. Watch this. Go back to verse 3. Verse 3 says, and wherefore had the Lord brought us into this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and children should be a prey? Were it not better for us to return into Egypt? Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. So Moses and Aaron is beginning to plead to the Lord on their behalf. Mm-hmm. All right, this verse 6 says, and Joshua the son of Nun, and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, which were of them that searched the land, rent their clothes. So watch this. You had 4 people that was trusting God. Moses and Aaron, Joshua, and Caleb. Mm-hmm. Okay? Verse 7 says, and they spake unto the company of the children of Israel, saying, the land which we passed through to search it is an exceeding good land. So they're trying to assure them that this is a good land. Verse 8 says, if the Lord delight in us, then he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which floweth with milk and honey. Look at that. Look at that. It's conditional. If the Lord delight in us, then he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which floweth with milk and honey. Only rebel not ye against the Lord, neither fear ye the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Their defense is departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Fear them not. But all the congregation bade stones them with stones. So they gathered stones about to stone them. And the glory of the Lord appeared in the tabernacle of the congregation before all the children of Israel. You seeing this? You got 4 people that saying, no, hold on. Hold on. All we got to do is trust God. Have faith in God. He's going to do what he said he would do. Yes. This is what was promised. And one thing that we understand, let me explain this difference between now and then. Now, we don't really teach our children the things of God. In the biblical times, it was necessary that they pass down what God had taught them. Pass it down from generation to generation. Okay, so therefore they knew. Now the third point of why Israel was wandering is because they did not understand they were already victorious. They did not understand they were already victorious. Because listen, let's go back to verse 9. Verse 9 says, only rebel not ye against the Lord, neither fear ye the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Look, their defense is departed from them. They can't even defend themselves. And the Lord is with us. You see that? Now let's move on. Drop down to verse 18. And I'm moving around because I'm trying to bring out some specific points. Verse 18 says, the Lord is long-suffering and of great mercy, forgiving iniquity and transgression, and by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers of the children unto the 3rd and 4th
generations. Now, hold on. Let me say, well, no, I'm going to come back to that. Watch this. Verse 19 says, pardon, I beseech thee, the iniquity of this people, according unto the greatness of thy mercy, and as thou hast forgiven this people from Egypt, even until now. And the Lord said, I have pardoned according to thy word. 21 says, but as truly as I live, all the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord, because all those men which have seen my glory and my miracles which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have tempted me now these 10 times, and have not hearkened to my voice. So wait a minute, let me tell you what's going on. Okay, they have, you see that it said 10 times. So 10 times Israel was, actually it was 14, a number of 14 times Israel was disobedient to God. At this point here, it was 10 times, right? So, but I said, okay, all those men which have seen my glory and my miracles, which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have tempted me now these 10 times. So he's saying, okay, well, wait a minute. Apparently, they forgot about the 10 plagues. You know, the blood, the frogs, the gnats, the flies, the death of the animals, the boils, the hail, the locusts, the darkness, the death of the firstborn. They forgot about the cloud of fire, the cloud that covered me, and the fire in the night that led them. They forgot about the manna which God provided for them to eat. They forgot about the Red Sea. They forgot about all these things, and they're still tempting God. You see that? They forgot about all of that. Verse 23 says, surely they shall not see the land which I swear unto their fathers. So now God is saying, you know what? Enough is enough. Neither shall any of them that provoke me see it. Verse 26, and the Lord spake unto Moses and to Aaron, saying, how long shall I bear with this evil congregation, which murmur against me? I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel, which they murmur against me. Now, I want to go back to something, because I just saw something while I was reading this. When we go back to verse 18, Numbers 14 and 18, watch this. It says that, the Lord is long-suffering and of great mercy, forgiving iniquity and transgression, and by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the 3rd and 4th generation. Now, wait a minute, because we see here that he's talking about Israel, right? Okay, but there's something else that's going on there, because how long was Israel in captivity? 400 years, right? That's 4 generations. Because actually, the Amalekites, the Amorites, the Hittites, all of these people had sinned against God, and now their iniquity has come up before God. See, and this is why they're being kicked out of the land. This is their fourth generation of their forefathers that has sinned against God, right? So now here we are. Israel is to take them out of the land, because the land was promised to them, and now Israel can't get out of their iniquity.
That's good.
You see that? Let's go to the fourth point. And the reason why Israel was wandering is because they did not understand the power of their words. They did not understand the power of their words. Verse 28 says, say unto them, as truly as I live, said the Lord, as ye have spoken in mine ears, what? So will I do. I'm going to do exactly what you said.
Wow.
Your carcasses shall fall in this wilderness, and all that were numbered among you, according to your whole number, from 20 years old and upward, which have murmured against me. Let me put a pause there. Why is it from 20 years old and upward?
Because they're no longer in their ignorance.
That's right. In Israel, at age 10, 1 to 10, 0 to birth to 10, you are considered ignorant. But from 10 to 20, you are to be replacing that ignorance with knowledge. So now at 20, you're expected to know. So that's why it was from 20 years old and up, because y'all know better. You see that? Go to verse 30. Doubtless ye shall not come into the land concerning which I swear to make you dwell therein, save Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun. So God said, okay, well, because of your doubt, you're not going to enter into the land. The only people that's going to, except for Joshua and Caleb. But watch this. But your little ones, verse 31. But your little ones, which ye said should be a prey, them will I bring, and they shall know the land which ye have despised, because they're innocent. It's not them. You see, so I'm bringing them in because you didn't appreciate the land.
And not only that, when they murmured against the Lord, that's who they would call themselves, wanting to save, saying, you could have left us in Egypt. You brought my children and my wife out here to die. The Lord said, I'm going to save your kids.
Right. Don't worry about them. Oh, I got them. But your little ones, which ye said should be a prey, you said they should be a prey, them will I bring in, and they shall know the land which ye have despised. Verse 32. But as for you, your carcasses, they shall fall in this wilderness, and your children shall wander in the wilderness 40 years. So watch this. So listen. I said, okay, I'm going to punish you. Y'all ain't going to get out of here. And the punishment that's falling on the kids is that they going to wander for 40 years. And bear your whoredoms until your carcasses be wasted in the wilderness. Now, here's the thing. How does that relate to us today? How does this, what they did, relate to us today? Okay, because let's go to 1 Corinthians 10. 1 Corinthians 10. Beginning at verse 1. And I'm going to read these verses to show you something. Listen to this. It said, moreover, brethren, I would not that ye should be ignorant, how that all our fathers were under the cloud, remember the cloud, and all passed through the sea, Red Sea, and were all baptized unto Moses in the cloud and the sea. So we're seeing right there that the Red Sea was a type for baptism, because the sea, going through the sea, saved them. That water saved them, right? And did all eat the same spiritual meat. The spiritual meat was the manna. Okay? And verse 4, and did all drink the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ. Verse 5, but with many of them God was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things were what? Our example, to the intent we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted. Neither be ye idolaters, as some of them. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play. Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed, and fell in one day 23,000. Neither let us tempt Christ, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed of serpents. All of these things happened while they was in the wilderness, right? Neither murmur ye, as some of them also murmured, and were destroyed of the destroyer. Verse 11, now all these things happen unto them for what? For an example again. Who is the example for?
Us.
It's for us. And they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. Now wait a minute, because not only was what they was going through was an example, but also what all of that happened was a type. It represented something. So let's see what it represented, because all of this was an example, a type, metaphorically. Okay, metaphorically, spiritually, physically, it was a lot going on. This is why you have to know the Bible and read this, because it's some very profound things that be happening in the Bible in what you see that is written.
Yes.
So watch this. Let me show you this, because this is an example, right? Oh, watch this. Israel, we know Israel. Israel represents and still is what?
God's people.
God's people. Okay. Egypt, because Israel was brought out, delivered from Egypt, right? Egypt represents what?
The world.
The world. Pharaoh represents what? Satan, because he's the god of what? The world. Right? Okay. Moses represents a type of Christ.
Yes.
Right? Because he was sent to what?
Save.
Save God's people. All right? Then you have the promised land, is the peace that was promised by God to his people. Now, the promised land, don't get this wrong, because don't get this twisted. The promised land did not represent heaven. Right? And we understand why the promised land did not represent heaven? Well, two things. First of all, there were people there that were wicked. Right? And two, there's a war going there. They were supposed to go there and kill them. There's no war in heaven. Right? There's no people in heaven that are undeserving. So that's why the promised land did not represent heaven. It was that peace that God had promised them. Okay? You understand that? All right. So now, more importantly, what we're understanding is that Israel, because of their carnality, because of their disobedience, because of their carnality, they missed it. They missed it. So they had to wander because they didn't get it. They didn't get it. And the thing is that just as Israel was wandering in circles, the people of God are still wandering in circles. The people of God are still wandering in circles. What that means? They're still dealing with the same issues. Right? They're still struggling with the same thing over and over again. They're living a defeated life. And how many understand that some of what you're dealing with is probably the results of your disobedience? Because watch this. If God has promised you peace, if God has promised you the victory, right? Why are you still dealing with the same thing? It's because you're wandering, because guess what? You refuse to give it to God. You're trying to make a way with what you're struggling with. You're trying to resolve it yourself. You may not even be trying to resolve it. You could be thinking that this is just life. This is how it is. And understand this. Let me show you something. It is possible to be delivered, but not saved. Understand this. Was Israel delivered from Egypt? They was delivered from Egypt. But guess what? They died in the wilderness. They were not saved. You see that? You understand that? Because between the deliverance, that's why when we taught about the process of salvation, the three processes of salvation, you have to endure to the end. Because if you stop after being delivered, after you repent and accept Christ, and you don't continue in his word, you become disobedient, then you cannot be saved. That's very important to understand. Now, when we go back to Numbers 14 and 34, Numbers 14 and 34 told us how they ended up at 40 years in the wilderness. It says, after the number of days in which ye searched the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall ye bear your iniquity. So God gave them a year for each day, even 40 years, and ye shall know my breach of promise. You broke the contract because I gave it to you. I promised it. This was done before you. This had nothing to do with you. This was done before you got here. This was because of the faith of Abraham that I am visiting his faithfulness to a third and fourth generation.
Yes, yes.
Because of Abraham. And you're taking advantage of it. You're being disobedient. So the thing is, how many times have you been disobedient to God? Just as Israel was disobedient, how many times have you been disobedient? And what we understand that when we go back to Deuteronomy 1 and 2, it tells us that it was an 11-day journey. They wandered in the wilderness 40 years in what was supposed to be an 11-day journey. So my question is, how much time, how much suffering have you added to your journey because of you not willing to surrender, you not willing to be obedient? Thing is, some of you should have made it to peace a long time ago. A long time ago. But you're still wandering. See, this is what the church needs to be teaching. The church needs to be teaching how to get out of that wilderness. The church needs to be teaching how to get out of that wilderness. Because see, what the church is teaching that, the church is teaching that when you accept Christ, you've made it to the promised land.
Come on, teach.
And see, the thing is, what the church is teaching that, okay, because you're blessed. You're blessed. You got a nice car, you got a nice job, nice family. You're blessed. You made it to the promised land. And people are wandering. But they're telling them, they're disguising it. They're saying that, okay, listen. If you're wandering, then guess what? God has not blessed you.
Wow.
But what I need you to do is, I need you to teach me how to stop wandering.
Yes.
I need to find my way.
Give me direction.
I need you to give me direction so that I can enter into the promised land. So I can get what God has promised me. That's what that's what I need.
That's good, Derek.
I need to get out of this cycle, this repetitive cycle that I'm trapped in.
My God.
Church is saying, just give me your money. Give me your money. That's going to get you out of sight. But you're giving money, but you're still trapped.
Nothing changed.
Nothing is changing. You're still wandering, but you're giving money. And I heard a preacher say, by this time next year. So he done took your money now. And so you mean to tell me that God is going to take a year to deliver you? Now, he can take a year to deliver you. But really, think about this. First of all, you giving your money has nothing to do with you receiving those blessings. It has nothing to do with you getting out of what you're trapped in, what you're struggling with, what you're dealing with, what you can't seem to shake. Money is not going to get you out of that. You know how you get out of that? By applying the principles of God.
Yes.
That's how you get out. That's how you overcome whatever you're dealing with, when you start applying the principles of God in your life.
Teach, Pastor.
But when the pastor done told you that, okay, by this time next year, he done got rid of you, because by this time next year, he don't even remember you.
You don't forgot.
You done forgot that you were supposed to be. And guess what? Let me tell you something. Here's one good thing that I see about Facebook. You ever notice that Facebook reminds you of this time last year, what you was doing?
Yeah.
And how many realize that you're dealing with the same thing that you was dealing with last year at this time? Because you're wandering. Because you're wandering. And if not for Facebook, many of us wouldn't even recognize this. I know I didn't. It becomes life. It becomes natural. Because we have normalized a lot of stuff.
Yes.
They was complaining about being in the wilderness, but it became natural. It became normal. And see, let me tell you something. Here's what I forgot to mention. Well, I didn't forget to mention. I didn't want. This wasn't a part of the assignment. Now, understand this: when they saw that they had provoked God and God was upset, then Israel said, "Okay, you know what? We're gonna go and conquer the land." And I said, "No, no. You're supposed to do that before." They're like, no, God. Hey, Moses, Caleb, Joshua, come on. Yeah, we're going to do it now. And Moses said, not now. Moses said, don't do it now. God is not with you. You don't mess this up. God done withdrew himself from you. So it's possible for you to wander for so long that guess what? God withdraws himself from you. Because the more you wander, guess what? The more you get away from God. The more you get away from God. Because if you had that relationship with God, it would stop that cycle. But since you don't have the relationship with God, you keep on going. Now you're not even listening to God. And then all of a sudden you realize, you know what? God promises I'm going to go take it. But where is God? God's not in. So Moses said that, you know what, the Ark of the Covenant, no, we're gonna stay here. I'm coming to you. We're going to stay here. And guess what? They went and tried to take the land, and guess what? They got killed. They was defeated. All because of, they wasn't listening to God. They wanted to do it in their timing. And that's how we are going.
And what it shows is, whenever the Lord brings us to a new place, and we don't know and we don't understand what's going on, we always want to revert back to where we come from. Regardless to where we come from we know it was hell. We know it was hell. And that's like us, you know, when we got to Texas. We had started talking about going back to New Orleans, you know, regardless, because it's familiar. The children of Israel was in Egypt crying, asking the Lord to send them relief, send them help, because of the things that the Egyptians was doing to Israel. But when they got into the wilderness, well, they didn't have a taskmaster over them. But it was unfamiliar territory. And they were saying, you could have left us in Egypt. We could have died in Egypt.
Right.
And that's how we are.
That's right.
That's how we are.
And you know what's amazing about that too? You brought up us being in Texas. Notice things didn't change for us until we accepted being in Texas. When we started embracing that, okay, here's where we're supposed to be.
Yes.
When we embraced our understand that being inside the will of God was in Texas. That's when things begin to change.
Yeah.
Because before that, we was doing the same thing, nothing was happening. Which is why we were saying that, okay, we're going back to New Orleans.
Because New Orleans was in our heart.
That's right, because New Orleans, our memory, all we knew was New Orleans. So that's a great point. But the thing is, like I said, it's all about being delivered. Because if we know that God is a healer, he's a provider, he's a redeemer, then guess what? You shouldn't be wandering.
Yes.
You know, you have access to the source. You have the source on your side. So all you need to do is access it. Right? So the thing is, stop going around in circles. Stop following that path of disobedience. Obedience is the key. All you have to do is meditate on God's word. Apply his principles in your life. Get off the merry-go-round. Now, enough is enough. But the choice is yours. I can't give you that. There's nothing, all I can do is provide the word. Teach you what the word says. That's what Moses did. Moses spoke to the people, everything that God said. They saw the signs, the wonders, the miracles, all this, but they still didn't get it. It's just like us. Now we have the example. We know about everything that has happened. Plus, we understand that, guess what? That God has delivered us from some situations. But why is it when we face with something new, we act like we don't know if God can do it? And you may not be saying you don't know if God can do it, but if you don't bring it to God, if you don't bring it to Jesus, then guess what? That's what you're saying. I don't know. I might have to do this with myself. The last time it was only alcohol. This is drugs. The last time it was gambling. This is much deeper. This is worse.
Wow.
So stop wandering and go into your promised land. Any questions?
We're living in a time where nobody seems to care. It's like we've lost our minds. You take a look at the news. Crime is at an all-time high. We can't keep pretending